Today I'm going to show you a Pokemon fan game that is going to blow your mind. It is written so well that it will stick in your mind for the upcoming months. It's called the Slowpoke Shack, and you'll be playing as a young lad called Archer trying to open and run his first ever restaurant. As you go along your journey, you will get to know the people of Silver Spring Town by making and serving them their favorite foods. And while this town might look innocent at first, there's a lot of shocking plot twists and an incredible story that we're going to uncover together today. So join me as we go through Archer's dream of creating his own restaurant. Our hero's journey starts off with a car ride as he arrives in the Silver Spring outskirts. Two people accompanied me here as well, my Uncle Lou and cousin Mia. They already lived in this quiet town and encouraged me to start the restaurant over here instead of the big city where I used to live, as there will be a lot less competition and way more freedom to create my passion. And Archer immediately loves it here as it's so quiet, there's no air pollution, and there's no cars around that are honking all the time. Lou and Mia are incredibly excited to try out my new restaurant once it opens, but when Lou says,
"Of course we'll be coming every day because we have to support the family business,"
Archer does get a bit sad because his own dad was never like that. But I quickly cheer up once my good old pal Growls jumps out of the car. He's been my best friend since I was little, and I'm super glad he's going on this journey with me. Before going into the house itself, I check out my local garden, I guess, and there is beautiful ponds, some trees, and even a forest nearby. Once we enter the house, however, we see that it's actually pretty small, and Mia and Lou make a little fun of it. We think it's going to be just fine for me and Growls. Unfortunately, we have to send our family away because we have to go to sleep early, as tomorrow is the big day where my restaurant opens for the very first time, and we cannot be late to our own opening. So I head to bed, then wake up early in the morning and head out into town to see what it actually looks like around these parts. I immediately see some construction work being done at a road, but also a bridge that's totally broken down for whatever reason, and they're going to have to fix that too. Besides this, there's also a small police department to keep everything in check, and a restaurant we'll be competing with called Kingler's Kitchen. Something that might be a problem in the future, but for now we're just going to worry on our own place. Speaking of our own place, it's just by a beautiful beach where people love to chill, build sandcastles, and swim. So in that regard, the location of our restaurant is great, as people always get hungry and thirsty when they're on the beach. We then arrive at the Slowpoke Shack and see that our family is already here because they wanted to be the very first customers. Normally, Mia has to go to school today, which meant she couldn't come, but because a Gyarados broke the bridge to the other side, she doesn't have to go. We also wake up Uncle Lou, who fell asleep on the terrace, so all three of us head inside to get everything set up. We can see that it's a very cozy but small restaurant with a kitchen that's perfect for a one-man team. However, we can't start serving food yet as our ingredients have not yet arrived from the supplier. Archer starts to stress out because of this, but in that moment, we hear the supplier honking from outside, which means everything is going to be fine. Our supplier's name here is Mike, but he doesn't seem all too interested about my backstory at all, and leaves in the middle of my sentence saying that he's too busy. So we immediately establish that he's sort of a weird guy. But no worries, because we bring our supplies inside and unpack it to see that we've got some tomato berries, nana berries, special plant-based hot dogs and buns, and finally coffee to keep everyone awake, including myself. With this, we can finally start our first day where we learn how to cook and make our drinks. For example, Mia orders a nanab juice and a hot dog. So for the juice, I grab a nanab berry, put it in the blender, and then grab a cup from the closet to fill it up and serve it to her. For the hot dog, I first put the meat on the grill, then grab a plate and put a bun on the plate, and once the meat is fully cooked, we put it between our buns and give it to Mia, successfully completing our first ever order. Uncle Lou is up second, and he wants a coffee and a hot dog, and the way you make a coffee is just by grabbing a cup and putting it under the machine. Once both of his items have been delivered, we get paid and can start making our honest living. And we even get our first real customers, Hayden and Quinn, who are super excited to see a new restaurant in town and immediately order our signature hot dog. In the end, our supplier Mike also showed up, but he suspiciously only ordered 2 coffees and then left without saying a word, and that concluded our successful first day. We've had great feedback, people are loving the hot dogs, and me, Mia, and Lou couldn't be more over the moon. After this, we clean up our restaurant and head outside where we meet two new people. The redheads Brett and Madison. They work for Kingler's Kitchen and aren't too keen on a new restaurant in town. So they start threatening me a little bit, which is not really what we had in mind for meeting new faces. Anyway, for now, I'm not going to worry about it too much because it's time for me to explore the town some more. I started out by helping a kid who needed a cake for his mom's birthday. So I went to the local shop, spent all of my harsh-earned money on an oranberry chocolate cake and brought it back to him. He was so excited, but in his excitement, he dropped the cake, which caused him to cry. His mom then finally got home, and at first she was really scared that I made her kid cry, but once everything got explained, she thought it was very sweet and thanked me for helping out. And as a little reward, we even got our money doubled back from her. But I also wanted to tell Lou about the incident with the Kingler's Kitchen employees, and he doesn't seem too surprised by it. They're bitter clowns that don't know how to run a restaurant as their service is terrible and their food is just okay. The Slowpoke Shack is miles better, and if this would happen again in the future, we're going to set them straight together. But if we'd have to do that in the future, we need some better team members. So Lou suggests that we should go and check out the local forest where we can capture more Pokemon. He hands me a hatchet which you can use to clear the entrance, and boom, we're in. Here we not only did our first couple of actual Pokemon battles against trainers, but we also find out that Pokemon can only be encountered in the overworld, which is a super cool feature in my opinion. With this, I was able to get Gally the Galarian Ponyta and Itzy the Joltik. With my team strengthened, I headed to bed and woke up the next morning for my second day, where I saw a ton of people gathered in front of the shack. Archer, one of the customers who came yesterday, informed his friends of my restaurant, and now they're all super excited to try it. And that, folks, is what they call mouth-to-mouth marketing. So I get the restaurant ready as fast as I can, and the customers started pouring in. Archer ordered 2 hot dogs, Mark a hot dog and a nanab juice, Ray a hot dog and a coffee. The family also joined in for their orders. Mike had his suspicious 2 coffees again. The second to last customer was Dexter, who didn't have a lot of good things to say about the restaurant, like he doesn't like hot dogs, he orders a tomato juice, then sends it back and says he ordered a nanab juice instead. I mean, I knew I was dealing with a real Karen here, so I tried to send him out as fast as possible. The last customer of today was Karen, who absolutely loved the cozy vibe of the place and knew this was going to be her favorite restaurant in the future. With that, I ended off yet another successful day, and as I tried to head outside, the 2 Kingler goons barged into my restaurant, demanding our service because they wanted to try out our signature hot dog. We make them pay in advance because we don't trust them at all, and once they have their food, they say it looks really sad, and once they taste it, they of course scream out that it tastes awful. They then push away my plans before leaving in a rage, but when we head back to the kitchen, we see that Growlithe is chasing a Wingull away from my fridge as it stole almost all of my food, which means we can't open tomorrow unless we find some berries. So I meet up with my family and ask them for some advice. But first, Mia tells a very cute story about our Slowpoke Pokey being incredibly dumb in the house, as he thought his own reflection was a different Slowpoke. After this, we explain everything to our family, but we also cut back to Madison and Brett, who are standing in front of Kingler's Kitchen. They're admitting to each other that our hot dogs were actually amazing and we might be a problem to their own establishment. So they start building a plan to take me down. Meanwhile, me and my family have found a way to get berries. Me and Mia are going to go into the Silver Spring Woods, but through another side, because there's a ton of berries growing on a nearby shrine there. As we start our journey, I first run into a very peculiar guy sitting on a bench. He was dressed up as a Lotad and was preaching about how they were his favorite Pokemon. But he also had a special mission for me. He wanted me to capture 5 unique Pokemon and then come back to him. And the forest is the perfect place to capture those. So we meet up with Mia and traverse this beautiful forest together. As we were walking, we started talking to each other and we learned that Mia actually thinks it's a little bit boring here sometimes, even though she loves Silver Spring. I tell her that my dream was always to open a restaurant, but if I would have done it in the city, it would have been terrible, with Dad always questioning my choices, everything being super expensive, so I would have way more stress and competition, which is the main reason I moved here, because it's so calm. I also say I'm super glad that I moved here, and Mia seconds that, and that really felt like a good bonding moment between me and Mia, as I definitely don't regret regret naming my restaurant after her favorite Pokemon, Pokey. After this, it's time to capture some new Pokemon, so I grabbed a Rookidee and Mareep and evolved that Mareep into Fluffy straight away. We then finally reached the shrine, but the berries are behind a fence and Mia just says,
"'Cause that's what she does all the time."
but I don't get a good feeling about this. But we go ahead with it anyway because we need the berries. But of course, the moment I hop that fence, the shrine starts glowing and weird things start happening to me. I see weird flash forwards of a mysterious man, my dad, cousin Mia running away. It's not looking too great if all of these are going to come true, and when I eventually wake up, I don't even seem to know what just happened to me. I, however, feel very sick all of a sudden, so Mia brings me home. She tells me that I should rest as much as possible and maybe not even go to work tomorrow, but we can't do that on our third day, so we head to bed and start pondering about everything that just happened to us. But I'm starting to hope that they were just nightmares. And eventually I am able to fall asleep, but when I wake up the next morning, Mia is already at my doorstep to check up on me. We tell her that we're fine and start heading back into town. That's where I inform Jeffrey of the Pokemon that we captured, and as a reward, he opens up his hand with nothing in it, as the real reward is the Pokemon that we caught along the way. And then he mysteriously leaves. I also heard that there was a local library, so I wanted to check that out. For now, the only thing I could do here was talk to a girl called Fiona who wanted me to collect seashells on the beach. So not even 5 minutes later, I was at the beach gathering every single one I could find and then brought them back to her. And as a reward, she tells us our fortune. She says that a Pokemon will capture our heart in the near future, as a lifelong bond is going to be in the air, which kind of scares me because I think that's illegal. Anyway, I don't have time for weird fortune-telling speculation. Anyway, we need to open our restaurant again. So we head inside and I start talking to Growls because we need to work harder. We need to find things to make sure that dream will never come true. So I start thinking, and eventually we come on the idea to expand the menu by adding a fruit salad, as we'll chop some tomato and nana berries and call it a salad. So we start our day with a new menu item and some of the customers immediately order it. The way we make it is by chopping it on a plank with a knife and then putting it in a bowl. Like usual, we've had a couple of regulars coming in. We learned from a couple of them that Kingler's Kitchen has actually never changed their menu in years, so us doing it on the third day is definitely promising. We also had a new customer, Dorothy, who thought she was in Kingler's Kitchen and ordered the usual, even though she had never been here before. But after clearing up the misunderstanding, she was super happy with her fruit bowl. Another new customer that we saw today is the Jolly Officer Darcy. She asks if we've seen any criminal activity recently, and unfortunately for us, the Kingler's Kitchen employees have not done anything illegal yet, so we can't get them arrested. Instead, we just give her her order, earn some money, and luckily for us, she actually comes and eats inside the restaurant because the Kingler employees just come rocking up. They spot her in the corner of their eyes, and this means they can't do anything bad to me right now. But they do something very weird. They order a raw hot dog without a bun or a plate and take it away. I didn't think too much of it, so I gave it to them and ended off my day. Once our shift is over, I have a quick chat with Darcy about the shrine in the woods. She tells me that everybody around here knows about that myth, and if we want to find out more about it, we should probably head to the library and look for some books there. So I head out and try to make my way over there, but first run into my family, and Mia has some incredibly bad news. You know how the bridge is broken and she can't head to school? Well, her teacher, Professor Pine, actually swam over just to deliver her homework. Yeah, we all had one of those teachers back in school that just loved their job a little too much. However, to do that homework, she is also heading to the library, so we follow her there and go to the front desk to ask librarian Mabel for a book about the shrine. She tells me there should be one on the furthest right bookshelf in the eastern section, so that's where I'm heading next. As a coincidence, we see that Mia is also sitting at a table here doing her homework, so we offer to help her, but she says Pokey is probably better than it than me. That kind of hurts my soul, but I was never good at maths anyway. So I check out the book instead, but nothing really all that interesting was in it. So we ask the librarian if there's any other books, but the only other one is in the restricted section, which we're not allowed to enter. So I asked Mia if she knows anything about the restricted section, and of course, as a kid who loves to get up to mischief, she knows where it is, as she even stole a book out of there once herself, but she isn't willing to tell which one. The bookcase behind us is actually a secret entrance, but in order to move it, we need a secret code that is supposed to be on a sticky note that sticks to the computer of the librarian. So we inform her that a Porygon infected the computer system. After following her, we see her put in the password, which means we can steal it, shove the bookcase aside, and enter the restricted section. It's super dark in here and filled with dark and ghost-type Pokemon, so I ended up capturing Hatter the Murkrow here and also evolved Tweedorukity into Corvus-Squire. Besides this, there were also kids playing hide and seek in here for some reason, so we had to battle them too until we finally got to the end, where I started to lose faith that we were never going to find the book in this gigantic place. But that's when the lights turned on and the librarian and Officer Darcy were standing there waiting for me. They tell me to hand over the book because it has been stolen, but we don't understand how that's possible because we just got here and haven't even gotten the chance to search for the book. But they don't believe me and attack me in a Pokemon battle, which we of course end up winning quite easily. Just when Darcy is about to arrest me, however, the other schoolboys come walking in and we use them as a distraction by saying that we were playing hide and seek with them and not searching for a book at all. So Darcy lets the four of us go this time, but we have to make sure this never happens again. Once we're all out of there, Darcy asks me again if I was telling the truth, and this time we tell her that I wasn't playing hide and seek and I was looking for the book about the shrine, but I never stole it. I never even found it in the first place. And she does believe me this time, but that does leave one question open. Who stole the book? It's definitely not our little cousin Mia, because the last book she stole was 100 Ways to Use Swear Words. With that funny incident out of the way, it's time for us to head home, but there is trouble brewing, as the Kingler's Kitchen employees and their boss are going to let that sausage be examined by a scientist to see what's actually in it, so that they can try and recreate the recipe. Unfortunately, this is all going down behind Archer's back, so he can't do anything about it. Instead, we go to sleep and wake up the next morning with another headache. Mia greets me the next morning at the front door and immediately sees that I'm sick and tells me to stay home, so I start debating taking a day off. But that's when she tells me that there's a full-on school coming here on a trip for the entire day, which means a ton of new customers could be coming to my restaurant and we can't pass up on that opportunity. And if we don't open up, they might all go to Kingler's Kitchen, which is not great for me. Mia is only going to let me go, however, if we manage to beat her in a Pokemon battle, so we use Growl's bites to take down her Poké and shock her Vivillon out of the sky with Sheepshi. After proving to her that we are in fact well enough to go to work, we can go into town and see that the entire group has already arrived. They're supposed to go on a lunch break, but just when I'm about to suggest my restaurant, Madison jumps in and tells them all to go to Kingler's Kitchen. I try to counter by saying that there's a new spot open called the Slowpoke Shack, but in the end, she wins all of them over by saying that there's massive discounts and free items. They then stampede over me, running to Kingler's Kitchen, and we're left behind in the dust. Uncle Lou then walks up to me and says that it's time for revenge as he goes to the Kingler's Kitchen in a disguise. First, he drops his Snorlax in front of Kingler's Kitchen so nobody else can come in anymore. Then he goes inside, gets a table for himself, and orders a pint of beer. When the server leaves, he throws out his Joltik called Popcorn and tells him to go and investigate what the staff is up to. While all of this is going on, I'm in my restaurant serving my customers, dealing with the annoying Dexter who's complaining about chunks in his drink, my kitchen being outdated, and everything just not being to his liking. I don't really understand why he even comes here anymore. Ella literally comes in riding her bicycle, which is not allowed because we want to keep this floor clean, but I decided to just let her off with a warning if it doesn't happen again. And after we serve Frank and Hiker from the Eastern Island, we cut back to Lou, who found out that they're trying to examine one of my sausages. This makes him furious, so he creates a whole distraction by saying there was a Joltik in his beer, and this creates chaos throughout the entire restaurant as their customers leave and come to my space instead. We serve a ton of the school people, all while they complain about Kingler's Kitchen being absolutely horrible, and that caused us to have the most profitable day yet. At the end of my shift, Uncle Lou walks in and tries to explain the entire situation to me. They're sending one of our sausages us to a food scientist at the Eastern Beach so they can recreate my recipe, and I'm obviously furious because of this. So me and Uncle Lou are going to deal with the scientist before he can give them the ingredients. So we head over the newly constructed bridge and start checking out the eastern side of town. That's where I helped Leela find her stuffle that she lost, but in the end she had to let it live in the wild because it didn't want to live with her at all. And even though it was hard for her to accept that, she does understand that he prefers to live in the wild. Me and Lou then make our way over to Silver Spring Beach, where we run into our supplier Mike, who suspiciously runs away on the side of me. However, I don't think too much of it because we already know he's a weird guy. Speaking of weird guys, we also run into Jeffrey, who tells me that Lotad have lily pad footprints and Ludicolo has donut footprints. However, he does not acknowledge that Lombre exists, which is pretty funny. Anyway, he does have a new special mission for me. He wants me to capture 15 different species of Pokemon this time, and then we can come back for our reward. So I scoured this beach for new encounters and turn my quest in. This time we get an extra special reward, a hug from him. But I don't really know this guy, so I'm going to pass, and with that he jumps into the water and swims away. We then continue our path down the beach until we run into a house, which we immediately enter. Inside we see one of our most hated customers, Dexter, examining our sausage. We tell him that we want it back, but he just says if you want to get rid of this, just take it up with Kingler's employees. And as far as he knows, they paid for that sausage, so it's their property and they can do whatever they want with it. So we're actually the ones that are illegally trespassing here, and he even threatens to call the police if we don't leave right this instant. Now I'm way too furious to think clear, and if he's not going to give me that sausage, I'm going to take it by force. Me and Lou challenge him to a double battle, which we end up destroying him in because S'mores the Snorlax crushed them all. After the battle, my Fluffy immediately evolves into Ampharos 2, and that's when he finally gives in and hands me the sausage. Once we head outside, Lou sees that I'm incredibly tired and ill, but I tell him that I just want to succeed in this one dream I have. Lou understands, but we can't be putting our own health on the line, so we have to go back home and take a nice rest. Once we're dropped off and I lay in bed, I start thinking that we're finally going to be fully recharged and ready to conquer the next day, as most problems have finally cleared up. But that assumption was about to be debunked, as Officer Darcy wakes me up by knocking on my door and telling me that we need to come down to the station for a serious talk, because we have committed a serious crime as we're being charged with illegally selling Slowpoke tail meat. Once we get down to the station, I don't understand how there can be Slowpoke tail in my hot dogs, as they're supposed to be plant-based. Unfortunately, we can't back up this proof, and they have received a report claiming that our hot dogs contain Slowpoke meat, and this report obviously came from Dexter. So I try to tell Darcy that it's just Kingler's Kitchen trying to shut me down, but unfortunately they have solid evidence, as they scanned the sausages themselves and it does in fact contain over 80% Slowpoke meat. I tell her that she needs to talk to my supplier Mike because he's the one responsible for the sausages. We don't know anything about this, and that's what they're trying to figure out because they can't find him anywhere. So if we want to prove our innocence, we need to find Mike and drill the truth out of him. But then I remember I saw him yesterday back at the Eastern Beach. So me and Darcy decide to go on this investigation together. We head out and do indeed run into him yet again on that same beach. However, he flees into a nearby cave. We chase after him and find out this place is an excluded cove that isn't really visited by anyone, although it is very beautiful, but there are some dangerous Pokemon in here. Darcy was right in this regard, as we faced a couple of boss Pokemon like Vaporeon, Mantine, and Lapras, and I even managed to capture the first one of these three, but once all of those roadblocks were out of the way, we reached the end of the cave. That's where we find an entire room with a shrine in it, as well as several Slowpoke with their tails cut off. And Mike, well, he's standing right in the midst of it all. Mike says to leave him alone because he hasn't done anything wrong. Darcy knows that's what they all say. But just when she's about to walk up to him, however, the shrine starts glowing, and she gets possessed by a strange blue Pokemon. Her eyes turn blue as well, and she just doesn't even have an expression on her face anymore. There's definitely something very wrong here, but all we know is that she instantly attacks me. So I defend myself by taking down her Riolu with my Joltik's Electro Webs. Vaporeon then washes away her Lycanroc with Water Pulse. Phalanx gets crushed by my Murkrow's wing attacks. And lastly, Manectric feigns to a combo of Confuse Ray and Thunder Punches from my Ampharos. After the battle, Darcy snaps out of the position and she feels absolutely terrible as something was controlling her. She didn't have any control of her limbs. It was just a horrible feeling in general. So we calm her down, and after regaining our stride, we scream at Mike, what did the shrine just do to us? But he says he doesn't know at all, so Darcy arrests him and takes him to the station where we are going to be interrogating him. He immediately confesses and says he's fully responsible for the Slowpoke tails and that we had nothing to do with it. Unfortunately, he does indeed say he has no knowledge of the shrine. But now it's time for me to ask why he did all this. No wonder he only ordered coffee. He knew there was Slowpoke meat in there. He wasn't going to eat that himself. But we don't get any answers. The only thing he says, I truly am sorry. But the damage was already done as the Kingler employees were going through the town informing everybody that they've been eating Slowpoke meat. Meanwhile, our restaurant still has to remain closed until we change the menu and comply with all the safety regulations. So this whole fiasco is the biggest setback we could have gotten. Once we leave the police station, Uncle Lou comes up to me and we explain that we had no idea this was happening behind our back, and he's just happy to hear that we've managed to clear my name. Unfortunately, everybody in town has already heard of the news, including my cousin Mia, and this not only crushed her, but also my heart as she came up to me and asked,
Is it true? Did I really eat Slowpoke tail? It doesn't matter that you didn't know. I ate Slowpoke meat and that's beyond horrible.
I try to console her with a hug, but she tells me to stay away from her and runs off. And if that wasn't enough, of course the bullies that put me here in the first place come up to me to rub it in my face as well. This confrontation caused me to run away, and I thought to myself, it's over. It's all over. My customers deserve better. This town doesn't need the Slowpoke Shack. This town doesn't need me. So I made up my mind, and the next day I left this place and headed back to my parents' place in the miserable big city. Uncle Lou tries to stop me because we are actually running away from our dream, but after what I've done to the people of this town and my cousin Mia, I don't think I'll be able to face them again. And even if I would reopen the shop, nobody would be coming there anymore because of our bad reputation. Lou tells me it isn't only about the shop. We've built things here like friendships and memories, but to me all of that is tainted now because the people will only see the Slowpoke scandal. However, Lou does think we can regain everyone's trust with time, as the police are going to show our innocence. But the only thing I can think about is that Mia hates me now, and that's all I need to know to leave this place. Speaking of Mia, Lou says that I need to go and say goodbye to her, but I don't have the courage to do that, so I step in my car and head back to the miserable place I came from. So Lou drops me off, but we tell him he doesn't need to go inside with us as him and my dad don't have the best relationship. And so we give him one last hug and thank him for everything he's done to us, and then we take the elevator up to my parents' apartment. But I don't even have the time to enter the apartment as my mom comes barging into the elevator because she's so excited to see her little boy again. She immediately asks me if I'm tired or hungry and that she's washed my bed sheets, and we're going to have a huge feast because we're back. So while I do feel incredibly welcome here, it's also very overwhelming because of what I've just been through. That's when we enter our apartment and my mom urges me to go and say hi to our dad who's sitting on the couch. Of course, in that exact moment, there is a news article playing about the Slowpoke scandal that we're involved in. Which is not a great look in front of my dad because he already didn't believe in my dream from the first place. So he turns off the television and says,
"How shameful. This wouldn't have happened if you just listened to me, son. What a waste of time."
He then runs off to the table and I counter with, "Good to see you too, Dad." And so the cycle begins. Back in Silver Spring, Mia can't believe we left without saying goodbye, and Kingler's kitchen is running better than ever. Meanwhile, Darcy just got out of the hospital and she needs to understand what the shrine did to her. And Lou is going to try and explain to the whole town that all of this was just a mistake so we can try and reclaim our dream. Around a month later, not all that much has changed. I have gotten a corporate job in a standard office, which of course is very good pay, but also very boring. So I of course start to miss Silver Spring more and more. However, my coworker Harvey actually tends to break this cycle right here and now as he asks if I have any plans for the weekend, because he won 2 free camping tickets to the national park and asks if we're interested. That's something that could bring me some nice entertainment, so I accept his offer and he hands me the tickets because he is very forgetful and might lose them. I head home to prepare myself and tell my parents about the trip I'm going on, and we learn that they actually went there themselves when they were younger and very much enjoyed it. But it is very expensive normally, so we are one lucky lad. Just in that moment, however, the telephone starts ringing and I pick up. It's Uncle Lou who has some fantastic news for me. As for the past month, he's been spreading the truth about what really happened. Everybody there is starting to miss me and is willing to give me a second chance. And the best part, everyone's eager to see the Slowpoke shack reopen. But before I can even think about going back there, my father shoves me aside and tells Lou to stop putting delusional dreams in my head, because he thinks this is not what's best for me. They didn't have an entire argument because Lou thinks this is actually what I'm supposed to do, and that Grant, my father, is just holding me back, and in the end the phone is just slammed down and the conversation ends. My father tells me that I can't go back to Silver Spring after that shameful scandal, and that's when I start to doubt myself yet again, thinking that it's too soon to return. In that moment, the telephone goes again and my father picks up the phone and screams, "Leave my son alone." But it's not Uncle Lou at all, it's Harvey, my friend from work, who's of course shocked because my dad scared the jeepers out of him. But he's calling to cancel our plans at the park because he has a date that he forgot about on that same day, so we get to keep the tickets and take somebody else from our choice. So my mom suggests that my dad should go with me so we can have some nice father and son bonding time. Both of us are definitely opposed to this idea, but in the end, the will of mom always wins, and the next day we traveled to the park together. We asked my dad what he used to do here with mom all those years ago, but the only answer we get is
Just walked around, nothing too exciting.
this is really the only place he loves here because he grew up in the city and this is the only patch of nature around, so it's pretty special. He even tells me that there's a nice lake at the back of the park where we could set up our tent, so that's going to be our plan. So me and my dad head through the park, battling tons of trainers together and having a little bit of father-son bonding time, as he even saw my Joltik evolve into a Galvantula. After this, we reach the lake, but we have a very awkward conversation, almost like we don't even know each other, until he eventually calls back a moment from my youth where I apparently loved going to the lake here to catch Magikarp with my bare hands, even though I can't remember it myself. Those were nice times he did really appreciate, but he doesn't miss those times as the present and future are what matters to him. Eventually he says,
You want to reopen the Slowpoke shack, don't you?
and that's when I explained to him that I want to create something that people will love, something I can be proud of, and he thinks we can do something like that here in Goldridge. But I don't think that's going to work out, as I always feel like I'm in a cage here, but my father just doesn't want to see me fail again. I tell him that I didn't fail because that incident wasn't my fault, and while he does understand, he thinks that it's very stable and safe here, but to me, safe doesn't always mean happy. In that moment, my coworker Archer arrives at the lake as well, which we're shocked to see because he had a date planned, and of course his date was planned here, which he ended up forgetting. So now me and my dad will be camping together with them. What a great idea. After our tent is set up, we sit together at a table and ask how they met. Apparently she works at the Pokemon Center, and Harvey told her that he had no money to heal his Pokemon, so she offered to lend him some money, and then they totally forgot that you don't have to pay at a Pokemon Center at all. It's free. And that's when me and my dad realized that these two are absolutely made for each other. However, after all of that talking, we do start to get very hungry. So we try to go into our tents to grab our packed lunches, but unfortunately, Wingles stole all of them, so we are out of food. But not to worry, I used to run a restaurant. I know how to cook meals from the things I find in my surroundings, so I scour around the park for apples, mushrooms, and oranberries so I can make a nice soup. Once all of them have been collected, I cook everybody their meal by cutting all of the ingredients together, putting it in a bowl combined with water, and then cooking that on top of a fire. Once everybody has their bowl, we start to dig in and we we get all sorts of compliments from everybody at the table, and even my dad thinks this is absolutely amazing. But shortly after, our cozy cookout immediately gets disturbed by a wild Ursaring who smelled my beautiful food. Harvey immediately hides behind his girlfriend who tries to protect us with Sashimi, her Magikarp. Yeah, if me and my dad weren't here, they would probably be dead. So I throw out Growlithe to try and protect us, but my dad has a better idea. He knows we absolutely love Growlithe, so that's why he bought a Firestone for us a long time ago, and now is the perfect time to use it. And so we turn Growlithe into the beautiful, strong Arcanine he was always destined to become. And with this upgrade, we easily overpower the Ursaring and save our camping trip. So we head inside of our tent and go to sleep, but just before that, my dad starts talking to me. He's really proud of what we did today. He had no idea we were such a good cook, and we should probably start cooking at home as well because he's sick of mom's food. He even asks if our food was this good at the Slowpoke shack, and of course, if you ignore the hot dogs, it definitely was. We also learned that he really appreciated all the Pokemon battles we did in the park today because his dream was always to become a great Pokemon trainer, but he never had much of a chance to develop as a trainer. He got his first Pokemon rather late, and Goldrich isn't quite the greatest place to train. Apparently, he even turned our apartment into a gym for Halloween, which is something he very much loved, even though our mom wasn't all that impressed. But seeing us cook with so much passion today made him realize something, that this isn't just a job for us, it's who we are. So in that moment, he gives me my blessing to reopen the Slowpoke shack, because he wants me to go back to Silver Spring to pursue my dream. This makes me incredibly excited, but of course we need to be making the right decisions from now on, and we need to save a table for my old man once in a while too. With that, our deal is settled and our mind is made up, and so this camping trip, which was supposed to be boring and stupid, turned into one of the best weeks of our life as I finally connected with my dad. The next day, we say goodbye to our parents and head back into the car to travel to Silver Spring with Lou. But as I just said, a lot of changes had to happen, starting with the name, logo, and everything around the restaurant, as it will now be called Grills with Growls, with Arcanine as the new logo. A great rebrand that's going to take away all of the pressure from the Slowpoke scandal. Lou tells me that Kingler's Kitchen is probably going to mess with us again because they were thriving while we were gone, and now that we're back, they probably won't be too happy. He also tells me that Mia hates and misses me at the same time, and that we should probably try to make it up with her, because she's honestly more upset that we left without telling her than about the whole Slowpoke meat thing. Anyway, with that aside, we now know that Mia is probably okay, and we should definitely go talk to her once everything starts rolling again. We say goodbye to Lou and head to bed, and when we wake up the next morning, me and Arcanine are super excited, not only because the restaurant is named after him, but also because we're going to be working with a clean slate. However, I'm still in doubt of my own abilities, and just hope no other scandals will show up. Arcanine's smile definitely cheered me up and got me going for the rest of the day, because we were about to meet our new supplier, Cody, who seems like a very chill guy compared to Mark. He immediately hands me my delivery, and I ask him if there's any Slowpoke meat inside of it, but he just says,
"Nope, dude. This is just what you ordered."
So yeah, we're fine. We don't have to worry about stuff like that anymore. I then head inside with Arcanine because we've got some exciting new items on the menu to replace the hot dogs. Those are grilled mushrooms and potatoes, still plant-based and also very tasty. So I start my day, and of course Uncle Lou is going to be our first customer. And so he tries our two new items straight away. We cut the potato and mushroom, throw them on the grill, and hand them to him. Throughout the rest of the day, we see other regulars that used to come here like Hayden, Ray, and Cherry, and most of them have forgiven me at this point and are just excited to try my new dishes. And at the end of the day, I was very excited with all the support we got, even though I was expecting a lot of angry customers. But meanwhile, at Kingler's Kitchen, we see Brett and Madison talking to their boss, explaining that there's a new restaurant owned by me. While the both of them start cooking up evil plans again, the boss says,
"Leave it to me," and
finally, we see his face. But before we get a confrontation with him, we have to go and apologize to Mia. So we go to the Silver Spring School, but we get distracted by a mission from Hunter, who wants to go on a treasure hunt on the beach. So we head to the beach, play the hot and cold game until we eventually reach the spot, dig up the treasure, and find out that it's filled with pearls that are going to make us rich. Hunter then runs off and screams,
I'm going to quit school and buy a mansion.
even though pearls are only worth like 3k in Pokemon Pokemon dollars. On the same beach, we also find Jeffrey again, who's happy to see me because he doesn't have a lot of friends to talk to. So instead of talking to friends, he loves to assign random missions, and my next one is going to be capturing a Lotad, which has a 1% encounter rate here on this beach. So after searching for about an hour, we finally find one and hand in the quest to Jeffrey. And our reward this time, his friendship. That's when he leaves, but we say, no, don't go. But he knows our paths will cross again because we can never give up, stay strong, and always chase our dreams. And with that experience out of the way, he swims off into the horizon and we are back on our way to school. We find Mia standing in front of the school pond right at the end of the garden, but the way she greets us is kind of menacing with her evolved Slowbro in a Pokemon battle. But I use my newly evolved Arcanine's Crunches and Murkrow's wing attacks to easily finish off Pokey. Another wing attack squashes Vivillon, and Ampharos uses Thunder Waves, Power Gems, and Electro Balls to deal with Delcatty and Lopunny. Now that all of our pent-up emotions have gone up in the battle, we can finally start talking to each other again. And the first thing I ask is, when did Pokey evolve? And her answer is,
when you were busy in Goldridge.
and so we say sorry for leaving without saying anything and for making her eat Slowpoke meat. She tells me to apologize to Pokey too, and once we've done that, everything seems to be alright between the two of us. But we do owe her a free meal at Grills with Growls. She also apologizes for saying mean things, but we tell her it's totally fine. We were all just caught up in our emotions, and I'm just glad to be back here. She then heads off and says she's going to drop by at the restaurant tomorrow morning, and when we're about to go too, a menacing figure walks up to me. It's the boss of Kingler's Kitchen. He introduces himself as Marcus, and while he looks menacing, we do say to each other that it's nice to finally meet. However, he thinks we have some things to discuss. Firstly, he wants to express his apologies for the Slowpoke incident. He also wants to apologize for Britt and Madison's behavior. He understands that there are some tensions between our two restaurants, but he doesn't want any bad blood and thinks this town deserves to be free of conflict, to which we of course agree. But he also asks me if we have some free time right now because he wants me to meet him at the local hospital. And that's when I of course think, yep, I'm gonna die, but I already said yes, so I have no choice but to go there. That's where he takes me to a room of a patient, and he gets greeted by his son calling him Papa. He apologizes to his son for being late because work was a hassle today, and then greets the woman laying in the bed by saying,
Afternoon, love. How are you feeling today?
to which she answers with a cough and telling him that he looks awful because he didn't shower today. Eventually, he sends his son Asher outside because he wants to let mommy rest, and when she's finally asleep, Marcus comes up to me and says, you're probably wondering why you're here. Well, he wanted to show me what his life is really like. His wife has been in the hospital for months with a rare illness, and the healthcare here in Silver Spring isn't great, and she's getting worse every day. He works hard every day for his wife and son and hates running Kingler's Kitchen. He only does it because he has to for financial reasons, because he needs to transfer her to a better hospital, but he can't afford it yet. And he won't lie, he's getting desperate because he doesn't have much time left, and so he warns me to be careful because we're in his way. That entire chain of events shocked and scared me, but I also very much understand where he's coming from. So with a heavy heart, I go back home to hit the hay. In the middle of the night, I start feeling awful for him and his family because they're going through such a rough time, as I never imagined that opening my own restaurant would have such a personal impact on someone else's life. But what can I do? I can't just shut down my business again. I just wish there was a way for me and Marcus to thrive at the same time. Until we find an answer for that, however, we need to go back to our day-to-day job at the restaurant the next day. We have got a couple of new customers, but also a ton of returning customers today, but the only thing we really learn is that Marcus is a very quiet guy who doesn't really seem to talk a lot with the other islanders. Madison also comes to laugh in my face. She doesn't really understand why I'm still here after hearing her boss's story, and to mock me even more, she orders a hot dog with Growlithe meat, and after that we just send her out. Mia also came by for her free meal, which she was incredibly happy with, and at the end of the day, Darcy showed up, but not just for a meal, she also needed my help with something. She wants me to meet her at the library to talk about what happened last month. So we walk there together and find out that she's still traumatized from the blue Pokemon that possessed her, and ever since she's recovered, she's been searching for the book we were looking for too, but hasn't found any clue of where it could be. So we tell her about my experience hints that we got visions from the future, which is very different from being possessed, of course, but these shrines are definitely very important. She also spoke with the librarian, who said that the missing book is called the Three Beings of Power, which means there's probably a third shrine somewhere else. Just when we're about to research some more, Officer John enters the library saying that there's a kid attacking people in town. And when we all walk outside to check out what's going on, we see Mark coming from behind a bookcase as he was eavesdropping on us. As we finally arrive in town, we see Asher, the son of Marcus, attacking people, stealing their money because he needs it for his mom. Marcus tries to calm his son down, but he doesn't listen. His eyes are glowing green and we can see that he is indeed possessed. He runs away into a nearby cave, so me, Marcus, and Darcy follow him. Marcus asks us what's going on. We tell him that his son is probably possessed by a legendary Pokemon and that if we don't stop him soon, he could very much be harmed in this process. So we chase after the kid and battle a ton of Pokemon along the way. This evolved my Ponyta into Rapidash, but when we reached the end of the cave, we were shocked to see Asher talking to the man who seems to be at the root of so many problems, Mark. Mike says that he can save him, and Asher even calls him his new best friend. We tell him to walk away from the child, but he doesn't move an inch. They seem to be dead set on their stance, so instead of talking it out, we're going to be battling these two. Me and Darcy start out by taking out all of Asher's Pokemon, including Raichu, Alcremie, Oricorio, and eventually Talonflame. This means we only need to deal with Mike's Pokemon, and because we're playing 2 against 1 now, this fight is ours to win. When we finally get the upper hand on them, Archer falls to his knees as a possession leaves his body, and at this point we know Mike is after me. He's been following me everywhere, trying to destroy my career, so we ask him, what is your deal? Who are you really? He then steps up to me and says, I'm you, and then pulls out the missing book and summons Celebi and Azelf before disappearing into nothingness. Unfortunately, because of this entire incident, Asher got very sick and had to be admitted to the hospital, which really crushed Marcus's spirit. I mean, his entire family is in the hospital right now and he can't really seem to get any words out. Apparently the island also did a fundraiser, but it didn't raise nearly enough to cover the costs. So all we can do now is give them moral support. A lot of things happened today, and if Mike can really control time, I don't know how we're going to stop him. But there's no reason to break our brains over it now. Let's just go to sleep and see what tomorrow brings. Deep in the night, I start thinking, why is Mike trying to ruin me? If he's me, shouldn't he be trying to help me? If I myself had the power to time travel, I'd save Marcus's family, I'd delete the Slowpoke scandal. But all of this doesn't matter right now. I need to let my mind rest. So after a good night's sleep, we wake up the next morning to honking from a car as my parents just arrived in town. They're here to visit me and also to do an island tour of the Copper Bay Island. They'll be staying here for 3 days and will definitely be visiting my restaurant, so I guess we better show them around. When I arrive at the restaurant, we see that the delivery guy has some peppers for me because we have a new recipe we want to try out. Once we enter, we see that our parents are already inside, my mother is inspecting the kitchen, and my dad immediately asks if they can help out with some extra hands. But we tell them they just need to relax and we will make the food for them. We're going to make our new item for them, which is the Growl Special, a baked potato combined with a baked pepper. They're super proud of me for making their orders and immediately eat them at the nearby table. After this, regular customers start rolling in, and my parents of course shout at them that they should try the new special, that it's great. I'm just trying to make some good advertisement for my business, even though it's a little bit cringe for me. Even Nurse Joyce showed up today, which was very surprising because I thought they were stuck behind that counter all day. Eventually, Karen, a customer who used to come here back in the Slowpoke shack, also came around and she started scolding me for making her eat Slowpoke meat and can't believe we would open a new restaurant here. My parents being my parents, they are of course protective and tell her to get out if she isn't going to eat anything because people like you shouldn't be coming to this business anyway. After this serious talk, she does eventually order something and then leaves when she gets it. Uncle Lou also showed his face and reunited with my mom a bit while ignoring my dad because yet again their relationship isn't great. And once my day is over, my mom invites Lou, Mia, and me to come with them on the cruise to Copper Bay Island. Lou isn't going to come, but me and Mia are, so we head head to the beach together. We jump on the boat together with my family, some other people, and Marcus. While we're sailing the 7 seas, Darcy is breaking her head of this blue possession Pokemon called a Zelf. She knows there's something we missed down at the cove and would love to go and check it out again. So Darcy tells Lou that she needs him for a special undercover mission, and of course Lou immediately accepts. After this, we reach the small volcanic island that is Copper Bay. My group already goes ahead, but me and Marcus stay behind. I ask him why he's coming here, and he insists that he's not here to make any trouble. His employees just told him to take a day off, and this island is a place where he used to come a lot with his family all those years ago. So it always brings him some very fond memories of nostalgia. After this, we go and check out the island ourselves and see that it's a full-on spa resort, with people just coming here to relax mostly. Eventually, we meet back up with our tour group, and in the meantime, Darcy and Lou have reached the cove. Darcy tells Lou to stay behind the fence, however, and if she would come back possessed, he needs to slap the hell out of her with Snorlax. He agrees to do so, and then she enters the chamber of the shrine on her own. While all of that was going on, me and my group finally reached the top of the volcano, which has been blocked off due to it being very dangerous over there. There used to be an entire town behind this, but a lot of people think it has been wiped out by either a volcano eruption or by a camerupt. After this, the tour group leaves, but me and my family stay behind to take a nice family photo. And in the corner, Marcus was watching at first, but then he started thinking about his own family and had to leave before he starts crying. Once the family photo has been successfully taken and this wholesome moment is over, we head back to the beach, and in the meantime, Darcy has thrown out her phalanx to search the shrine area for any hidden entrances. And she was right, there was one right behind the shrine, and this is Mike's hideout. He finds a ton of berries, tools, but also the book that has been missing. Before she can start to investigate it more, however, Lou walks in and asks if everything is okay. After she reassures him that everything is fine, she walks back to the shrine, and that's when she places down the book and a Zelf tries to possess her again. She is able to resist it this time and was even able to ask it some questions like what it wants to do. And well, the only thing a Zelf does is awaken the potential within people by fueling their will and driving them to achieve what they lack the courage to face. She also asks Azelf where the third being of power is, but if he wants to know, Azelf needs to take over her body, which she isn't going to do. So this is where their little chat ends. In the meantime, in between time, we have sailed back to the mainland, and our dad and mom are going to be staying in a tent outside of our house. That evening, we head to bed, and this was actually a very nice change of pace for me because it was the first time in a long time where I could finally feel relaxed. The next day, we wake up to something very unusual: rain, which has never happened here before. Hopefully this doesn't drive too many customers away, but regardless of that, it's time for us to head back to work. Of course, mom and dad have already arrived at the restaurant and were waiting for me to open, so let's start our day. We of course serve our parents first, and then a funny thing happens. A schoolboy comes running along and offers me $500 to buy the entire menu. So that's what we do, we give him every single thing on the menu, but then we realize this wasn't his money at all, as his father comes barging in, scolding at his son for stealing his wallet. Because we're honest people, we give the man his money back and they leave the restaurant. A couple that is visiting the island also came in, but at the same time, Dexter showed his face and told them that this is the famous Slowpoke shack, so they're immediately disgusted by the Slowpoke meat we used to serve. After this, they leave my fine establishment in disgust, and my mom and dad try to cheer me up with some nice words, and in the end, Uncle Lou does his final order. Once my working day is over, he tells me about his excursion with Darcy yesterday, so I head straight to the police station to talk to her. She apologizes for not coming to the restaurant today because the weather is horrible, and then takes me to the back. Here she explains that she's found the book and locked it away in a safe place, as no one should have access to that kind of power. They also plan to completely restrict access to the shrines in the cove and woods. After that, the investigation will be completely closed, which means she doesn't plan to go after Mike anymore, and we still want answers from him. However, she thinks he wields power on another level, and it will be tricky to capture him. So until we find a solution for that, he's going to be put on the back burner. But we can try to deal with him if he does show up again. And of course, in that moment, he teleports into the room with his two legendaries. He drives Darcy into a corner and gives me a choice. Either I side with her or with him. Either I can tell him to leave and he'll go, but we'll never get our answers, or we can follow him to uncover all the answers we've been searching looking for. We tell Darcy to trust me on this one because we're going to be following him. It's way too important that we know what all of this is about. When my decision is made, he takes us back in time 10 minutes so we don't experience all of this, and then he runs off and tells me to meet him at the shrine in the woods. Once we arrive there, I ask him why we're here and he lays down the 2 books, as he's already stolen the one that Darcy has locked away. He needs me to claim the power of Celebi because he's sort of losing control of his power at the moment. We tell him that we won't do it at first because I'm not going to do anything until he tells me what the heck is going on. But he says we'll understand everything if we do claim Celebi's power. We don't even get a choice in the matter as he lays down the book and summons Celebi upon me. We wake up in a weird forest where we get challenged to do 3 trials. The first one was beating a Hisuian Arcanine in battle, and once he was defeated, we saw a flashback of some sorts with me at the restaurant. Only this time on my first day, the supplier wasn't Mike, it was Cody, my second supplier. So I immediately noticed that something's off. I kept digging for answers, however, and in the second trial we had to beat a regular Arcanine in battle. Once that is done, we see another flashback of us waking up in a forest. I then went in search for the answers in the library, but this time I found the book on a bookshelf, which doesn't make sense because when I got there, the book was gone. But it's all starting to add up in my head now as we headed over to the final trial. This is where we saw a Pokemon that I'd never seen before, Iron Flames, a future variant of Arcanine that looked super cool but didn't stand a chance against Growls. Upon its defeat, we see our final flashback, and in this one our restaurant always kept on getting less and less customers. And I didn't really understand what I was doing wrong until I stumbled upon a conversation between some townspeople. They were saying that my plant-based hot dogs tasted absolutely horrible, and that's when I lost all belief in myself and went to the shrine in the woods to summon Celebi. And from that moment on, we realized that all of those flashbacks were not my life, but Mike's. After finding this out, we returned to the middle of the forest to talk to Celebi, who says that we've completed the 3 trials of time. But in order to master time, we need to face it. In that moment, Celebi attacks me, but we are very much prepared and overpowered it in seconds. And that's when it grants me a slither of its power. We can change the past and alter our future, all while my memories remain intact, but everybody else's, including my own Pokemon, would change. Once that's over, we get sent back to the shrine and start talking to Mike. And he finally starts explaining why he sabotaged my restaurant. He knew from across the world that Slowpoke meat tasted amazing, so he put it in my hot dog so everybody on the island would love our product. This in turn would make me way more successful than he ever was. And while it was working for some time, he did not think that people would be so upset about it if it ever got out. Because Slowpoke meat is actually legal in some areas of the Pokemon world. We tell him that that's absolutely unethical and that is something we would never do. However, he does think that deep in my mind, I would have done the same. That's when we realize that he's been possessed by a Zelf and is acting on his willpower alone, as he can't hold himself back anymore. His next plan of action is to erase Kingler's Kitchen out of existence forever. And even though we could set everything right with this because Marcus doesn't even enjoy running his restaurant, this is not good. We cannot tamper with time, especially not for something like this. That's when I tell Celebi to take me back into time before Mike arrived here so we can foil his plans and break him free of Azelf's curse. Once he teleports in, we ambush and attack him immediately and destroy his team with Growls, Galley, and Sheepshe. This brings Mike back to reality and he realizes that everything he's done has been wrong. He wanted to fix things, but not like this. And because of this entire chain of events, we erased the Slowpoke Shack scandal and changed our own entire timeline. Celebi takes me back and we do indeed see that we are now in Mike's world. Yes, the plant-based hot dogs were absolutely terrible and tasted like cardboard, but we knew that with our grill, we could make everything better. So in the next couple of days, I went around town advertising my new menu, and of course saw that Grills with Growls was gone and the Slowpoke Shack was back. But not only that, because I never had that bonding experience with my dad, Growls never evolved into Arcanine and he doesn't know anything about what the restaurant should have been. In the upcoming days, I started to realize this is not what I wanted. Nobody knows what I've been through. This reality seems very fake to what I'm used to and it just doesn't feel right. I basically did the same thing as Mike and altered my own past, and that is something I can't forgive myself for. I mean, the beauty about my original timeline is that I used to grow from my mistakes, and now I just erased it all. And once I realized that my mom and dad wouldn't be coming on day 8 to visit me because we had never gone back home, I realized the errors of my mistakes. So I asked Uncle Lou, if you could change your past, would you? And what he said really hit me, as he wouldn't dare touch his past because he's super happy with his present. In that moment, I call Celebi to teleport me back to the moment that I changed it all. And this time Mike was waiting for me again, and he knew what we had just done, and says, let me guess, you regretted erasing the Slowpoke scandal. We tell him to leave our timeline, but he doesn't want to leave because right now he's still under the control of Azelf, so we beat him in yet another Pokemon battle to set him free once more. After our battle, he snaps back to reality, and we ask him to not meddle with the powers of Azelf and Celebi anymore, to which he agrees. I also ask him why he painted his hair brown and calls himself Mike, to which he answers he's me, so we'd probably do the same in his situation. Fair enough. After this, we return him back to his timeline, and we tell Celebi to leave us alone. After saying goodbye to our green onion flying fairy, I know I have to head back to the station to give the book back to Darcy so she can lock it up. However, when we arrive there, we see Marcus talking to her, and he's telling her that Asher's condition has only gotten worse. So he asks her for the book because maybe that legendary Pokemon could break this stupid curse. However, she's not willing to give it to him. So that's when I realize that I'm the only one who can still help Marcus and his family. So that evening, I go back to sleep because I've made my mind up. I'm going to close the restaurant tomorrow. I'm going to dine with my family at Kingler's Kitchen to support Marcus, and we'll see what happens after that. The next day, we explain everything to my parents and Lou, and they agree to come with me to Kingler's Kitchen. Brett is immediately skeptical once we arrive and asks us what we're doing here. After saying that we just want to enjoy their food, we do eventually get our table. Once we're done checking out the menu, Uncle Lou orders a pint of beer, my dad gets a coffee, my mom gets a tomato fettuccine, and I'm going to go for the cherry curry. And this is actually a very cool segment. Here you get to play as Madison in the kitchen, and you get to make the food for the family from her perspective. As you expect, the food here was all frozen and put in the microwave, and the beer and coffee were just made regularly. Once all of us have gotten our food, we are actually enjoying it quite a bit, and even scream out that Kingler's Kitchen rules, which is normally the slogan of those two buffoons, so they're very surprised to hear me say it. Once our plates are all empty, Brett comes up to me and says that the boss wants a word with me. So we go down to Marcus's office. He asks me what we think we're doing, so we answer by saying we're trying to support him, but he says he doesn't need our pity because there's no reason for me to help him, especially after everything he's done, trying to sabotage my business, threatening me at the hospital. So I tell him I'm just trying to help, even though he thinks nobody can help him. That's when we mention that we can help him communicate with the Pokemon that cursed his son. Now we finally have his attention, and so we end up giving him the book and bringing him to the shrine back at the cove. On our way over there, he doesn't really understand how this book can help him talk to Pokemon, but I tell him that here in Silver Spring, nothing makes sense, and that he will understand everything once it happens. Just before entering the area of the shrine, Marcus asks me if this really is the right thing to do, but I reassure him that if one of us gets possessed, we can just snap each other out of it with a Pokemon battle. In the meantime, Darcy is back at the police office trying to check out the book because she's very curious about the third legendary. So when she opens up the save and takes out the book, she sees that it's actually the book my cousin Mia stole all those months ago, called 100 Ways to Use Swear Words. While she's putting those puzzle pieces together, we put our book in front of the shrine, and Marcus proceeds to get approached by Azelf. However, Azelf is not willing to give him any answers on how to make his son better, because if he wants that, Azelf needs to possess him. And because this is the only way to save his family, he accepts it. I try to stop it by immediately challenging him to a battle, but he throws out his Tyranitar and uses Earthquake to make the entire cave collapse. And if it wasn't for Growls saving me out of that cave, we probably would still be stuck in there. So after thanking our good old buddy, I try to chase after Marcus, and along our way, we run into Darcy, Mia, and Lou, who tell me that he took a boat up to the volcano, which means that must be where the final legendary is. We have no way to follow him as there's no other boats around, so we don't really know what to do. But that's when our good old friend Jeffrey shows up. He's willing to save sail us to the other island on the top of his Lotads. And me, I get the privilege to ride upon his own head. After we arrive there, me and my family start scouring down the island to see where Marcus could be, but every single person here has been possessed by him and ordered to attack me on sight. So on our way there, we fight all of our regular customers until we eventually reach the volcano where Uncle Lou was waiting for me in his disguise. He says Marcus went into that volcano and my family has already gone after him. So we follow Lou inside and tell him that it's very dangerous in here, but in that moment he pushes me off a cliff and reveals that he was possessed as well. We did manage to survive but are now in the deepest parts of the volcano, so we have to find our way back up by battling the camera that probably made this entire thing explode in the first place and hiking through many rough paths filled with lava. Eventually we do find our way back upstairs where we confront our possessed Uncle Lou. He now tells me that Kingler's Kitchen is the better restaurant and that he only helped me because he didn't want to crush a kid's dream. And even though we know this isn't really him talking, those words still sting. But we know what we have to do if we want to snap him out of it. Defeat him in a worthy battle. And that is what I proceed to do. Growls takes down his Galvantula with Flamethrower, Vaporeon washes away Golurk and Emboar with Hydro Pumps, and a few discharges from my own Galvantula and Murkrow's wing attacks take down Big S'mores the Snorlax. This snaps Lou back to his senses, and he immediately apologizes for everything he said, and he can't believe he pushed me off a cliff. We tell him that it's all okay, everything is fine now, but we can't stay with him. We have to move through the volcano to see what happened to the rest of my family. And as I suspected, more of them have been taken control of. As in the next room, Cousin Mia was scolding me for making her eat Slowpoke meat again. And so we battle her as well, defeating Pokey and all of her other friends to snap her out of the curse too. Now that we know she's okay, we move on to yet another room where our opponent was one of our best friends, Officer Darcy, who's placing me under arrest for illegally selling Pokemon meat and stealing a precious artifact. At this point, we know that nobody here is talking from in their own will, so once Growls is done destroying her team, she snaps back out of it as well. But in the next room, something very sinister was awaiting me, as my dad had been possessed but my mom was still okay. She was, however, very scared of the man my father had become here, as this is clearly not the man she loves anymore. He scolds at me again for opening the Slowpoke shack and tells me that we should have stayed in the city, but we know our real dad believes in our dream. But we did know he wanted to become a Pokemon trainer, so his team definitely put up a strong fight since last time we battled together. But in the end, we ended up winning and stood tall. Him and my mom say that we have to move on because we have to punish the one who did this to us. But we aren't facing Marcus yet, as the duo of Madison and Bree were standing in the final room as his last defense. Despite working for Kingler's Kitchen, none of them had water-type Pokemon, as everything was nearly fire-type. This made it really easy for me and Vaporeon to sweep all their Pokemon away in one huge wave of Hydro Pumps. And once they were defeated and fell to their knees, I could finally go up to Marcus and stand with him eye to eye. He asks me,
"Why are you trying to stop me? I thought you were going to help me."
but I tell him to look around. He's possessed everyone, and now we're in a freaking volcano. This is not normal, and we have no idea what will happen if that third legendary is unleashed. But he isn't thinking straight, as he just says that
This is the only way.
but I can't let him go through with this, so I tell him to give me the book back, and that's when he starts thinking that I just want the power of the third shrine for myself. But I tell him that I already tried to travel through time and fix all of my problems, and that didn't work, or at least it wasn't worth it. So he asks me,
If it's not worth it, then why did you give this book to me in the first place? Was it to try and hurt me? You're just a selfish boy. I've had enough. I will finish this now for Elara and for Asher.
and that's when our battle commences. He leads off with his newly acquired legendary Azelf, but it doesn't stand a chance against my Murkrow Sucker Punch combined with Growl's extreme speed. His iconic Kingler also shows its face, but Itzy sends it back to the kitchen with a single discharge. His Tyranitar that almost trapped me in the cave gets washed away by my Vaporeon's Hydro Pump, and the same goes for his Turtonator. He then tries to stop me with Aegislash, but little did he know that we could melt that down with Growls. His last Pokemon was every VGC's player's worst nightmare, Incineroar, but there was nothing to worry worry about, as my galley's horn could pierce it to win myself the battle. And even though we just freed him from Azelf's control, he doesn't want to leave, as he's come so close to the only solution and he's not about to let that slip now. He walks up to the top of the volcano to reach the shrine and sends more of my brainwashed customers upon me, but we have our entire family coming out to rescue me as they hold them back while I go and join Marcus at the top of the volcano. But it's already too late. He lays down the book in front of the shrine and summons the final Pokemon. And to both of our surprises, it's the victory Pokemon Victini, who hasn't seen anybody with the artifact in years. Marcus asks Victini for its help with his family, but Victini only grants victory to those it deems worthy. However, Marcus doesn't understand what victory means, and Victini says that it's different for every person. What does victory mean to him? As it's not just about winning or conquering challenges and persevering through tough obstacles. Sometimes it's the journey towards a goal that defines victory. Marcus answers by saying that victory means saving his family and ensuring their safety. Victini is able to make this come true, but in order to do it, Marcus has to defeat it in a Pokemon battle. However, all of Marcus's Pokemon have fainted because of our fight, so he asks me to heal up his team. However, Victini says that this is not allowed, as only the ones who are truly chosen will be here fully prepared. And so Victini asks me instead, what is my term of victory? And even though my restaurant might be my dream, the only thing I've ever wanted since arriving in Silver Spring is peace. Even though me and Marcus have had our conflict, I never wanted to outshine him. All I wanted was for both of us to succeed. But I promised myself to not touch the power of a legendary ever again. And so Victini asks me why I swore off the power of legendary Pokemon. And it's because I've seen how easily it can go wrong with dangerous powers like his. And so Victini says that
True victory often belongs to those who seek peace, not dominion.
so perhaps it is precisely my restraint that makes me worthy. After this, Marcus gives me his blessing to use Victini's power, and I know I'm only going to use it for good. So we challenge it to a battle with all of my power, as Vaporeon and Growls do decent damage with Hydro Pumps and Crunches, but ultimately do fall. After this, I bring out Murkrow and end off the battle with one last Sucker Punch. With our battle won, Victini says,
Victory will be yours.
and in a flash of light, we hear Nurse Joy say,
Marcus, we have some great news for you.
A couple of days pass and me and Marcus's family meet in front of Grills with Growls. That's where we find out his entire family is better and they're shutting down Kingler's Kitchen because he never liked running the restaurant anyway. They're also going to move to Goldrich City because that's going to be a better place for their kid to grow up. And with all the competition out of the way, we should be able to run our restaurant without any more problems. On top of this, Brett and Madison are also moving to Goldrich and are getting married. But unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we're not invited to their wedding. I answer by saying that we're going to miss all of them and all shout together, Kingler's Kitchen rules. As they leave the rest of town, all my family, friends, and customers come over to my restaurant for one huge dinner party. And now it's finally time for me and Growls to make our dream come true.